Anyway, you're listening to That's Live here on the Nachum Segal Network. We have three important and incredible guests today, and I really do not want to make anyone wait, especially since two of them are here live in the studio. Rabbi Jeremy Stern is the executive director of ORA, and as I mentioned on Facebook when I posted my promo for today, this interview is literally ripped from the headlines. I'm not exaggerating here. There's a tremendous amount that has taken place this week for those people who are watching either on the New York Post or on Facebook, the struggles of one particular woman to get herself a get. And that prompted me to reach out to Rabbi Stern. We have spoken before, but I am very happy that he's here in the studio this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so great to be here. Thank you.
It is my unfortunate pleasure, but I have to say that
that's wonderful, great, because it's unfortunate for you to see me.
I think
that see you too.
I think that ORA and Sharsheret probably have something in common. They are two organizations that wish they did not have to exist.
Looking forward to going out of business. I tell people that once we resolve all the Aguna cases, I'm going to start a shidduch service. So
it's funny that you bring that up. I have a question about that in terms of this specific case. So tell me, I know that you had mentioned we had mentioned peripherally in the front office while we were waiting for Charlie to finish that you've been pretty busy for the last 2 days.
Yes.
Tell me what that's been like. Tell me, for those people who for some reason or other don't know what's going on, let's bring everybody up to date.
So the truth is it really started about a month ago when there was a big article, a major news story on two rabbis who were arrested by the FBI for conspiring to beat up a supposed recalcitrant husband.
Right.
And so from that, there was then a lot of media interest in the issue of get refusal, and the New York Post reached out to us and reached out to a number of agunot to see if they'd be willing to share their story.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so New York Post is one of those newspapers. Reached out to us, reached out to Gital Dodelson, and she decided to share her story.
And you had known her beforehand?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working on the Dodelson case. I want to make sure I'm going to be accurate here for I think about 2.5 years.
Oh.
Yeah. And so in that time, the first year that we were working on it, and as our approach always at ORA, the Organization for the Resolution of Agunot, our approach is always to try to resolve things amicably at first, to see if there's a way to open lines of communication between the two sides, facilitate a Bezdin process, see if there's some way to ensure that the get is issued unconditionally, but to do so in an amicable fashion. And we tried that for several months, speaking with both sides, and seeing if there's some way that we can resolve things peacefully. Unfortunately, those efforts were unsuccessful, and so we resort to using all halachically acceptable and civilly legal. I bold that underline, highlight, capital letters, civilly legal forms of pressure. So we don't use any cattle prods or bust any kneecaps, but we organized a peaceful Tehillim rally outside of the home of Avram Meir Weiss, who's Ma'agan his wife now for several years. And so that our first rally, I think, was in May or June of 2012. And then there were, again, a number of efforts to try and resolve things amicably, move things forward, getting both sides talking. We organized another peaceful Tehillim rally close to a year later. And so now we're continuing to ramp up our efforts.
And this is definitely one tactic, one arm that you probably haven't used before, was the New York Post.
I mean, it's not the first major media outlet that's covered a story that Ora's worked on.
That I understand, but I'm saying an aguna who's specifically writing her story that's now being, published in a major paper.
What was unique about this story is that it was written as a first-person account by Gital. She was essentially a transcript was recorded by the reporter. And it was, in that sense, it's very emotional, very evocative. And what I see that it demonstrates is that what it talks about is the controlling behavior, the abusive behavior that she suffered over the course of her marriage. And when I say abusive, I'm not referring to physical abuse.
Right.
A point that's critical for us is that domestic abuse is not just about black and blue marks. Domestic abuse is defined as a pattern of controlling behavior. And so that can be manifested in many ways. So it's not just physical abuse, but it can be emotional abuse and psychological abuse, controlling the other spouse in all sorts of ways. It's this pattern of controlling behavior. And so what you see from the article is exactly that pattern of controlling behavior that Gital suffered over the course of her marriage, and that it's simply a continuation of that control, that abusive control that Avram Meir Weiss is exerting over her in refusing to give the get.
And in the article, she says that she had that her most recent conversation with him is that he admits that this is the last thing this is the last
Correct.
way he can control her.
Indeed, the get is the last vestige of control that an abusive husband has over his wife. That's exactly what it is. And he's unabashedly using it as leverage for money, for greater custody and visitation beyond what the court has determined is in the best interest of the child, even though he was the plaintiff in all contentious court matters. He was the plaintiff for custody, visitation, child support, legal fees, etc. And there's a lot of distortion out there that goes on. These cases are complex. Divorce cases are very messy. And what we hear all the time is, there are two sides to the story. I
was just about to ask you about that.
Just because... And there's been a lot of discussion on this in Facebook and social media, and all of the comments.
I'm just gonna. You're reading my mind right now. Okay.
I have that power.
It's pretty impressive, by the way.
It's obvious. You read the comments on Facebook and other social media outlets, and everyone's saying, there are two sides to every story.
Right.
But in abuse, there's no other side. Abuse is never justified. It's never okay under any circumstances to beat your wife. It's not okay. If she's attacking you, then, defend yourself and run away and call the police. But it's never okay to initiate abuse and to be cruel and vindictive and to beat her. And so just like one form of abuse is never justified, so to another form of abuse, which is the refusal to issue a get, is also never justified. Yes, there are contentious issues in a divorce, and there are two sides to the story of what happened and what didn't happen.
So whatever it is.
But the get has nothing to do with that. There are many fair forums that one could go to resolve custody, visitation, financial issues. And in fact, Avram Meir Weiss chose one of those forums. Davka not Bezdin. There's a seruv, an order of contempt issued against him. Instead, he went to civil court. He chose that as his forum. Once he didn't get what he wanted, he's looking for another bite at the apple to try and compel her to give him something that, more than what the court determined was fair and in the best interest of the child.
There's a lot about this case which is disturbing and crazy, and the conversations that are taking place not only on Facebook but on various blogs about what this says about the way Orthodox Jews date and the shidduch system, et cetera, and how we have to look at marriage and how people have to slow down. There's another part, and I want to discuss.
I start my shidduch service. I'll be able to focus on that.
There's a lot about that I also want to discuss. But what scares me also is that, please God, when he does give her the get, which should be, God, it should be today, it should be now, somebody else is going to marry him. That's what scares me. There's going to be another woman out there, because it's a shallow pool out there for women who are looking to get married, who are still not married, and they're single in their 30s and their 40s. Somebody's going to think that they can change him. And this, to me, is not a man who can be changed. This is a psychosis.
I hope she signs a halachic prenup. And I say that without I'm not joking. I mean, we've seen the halachic.
You disagree with me, by the way?
It's likely.
Right.
We've seen it in other situations. And in fact, often the husbands say, no one's going to marry me. We've seen many situations where these husbands get remarried, and we hope their wives sign halachic prenups. We actually recently had a repeat offender, a husband who was a recalcitrant husband twice. And neither wife obviously signed a halachic prenup. I hope if he gets married a third time, the third one will.
I don't understand. The second wife, after knowing what happened with the first.
She heard his side and didn't, only heard from his perspective, and no one said anything to her, and no rabbi said anything to her.
What is going on?
Yeah, it's very.
And who was the Masada Kedushin at that wedding?
His
All
rabbi?
Right. I mean, give me a break. The number of looking on the ORA website, which by the way is getora, getora.com.
Org.
Oh, sorry.
.com.org, but usually we use org.
Okay, I mean, it came up as com. I'm sorry.
Getora.
Getora. Either way, Getora. The number of rabbis who have given their blessing to ORA and support, and the number of rabbinic endorsements, and the various backgrounds of all these rabbis. I mean, you're going to say, oh, this rabbi's too modern Orthodox for me. Look on the list. You'll find one who applies to you. Right. They all support what you're doing.
I mean, Rav Heinemann has issued a skama for Ora, and I don't think he's actually a modern Orthodox rabbi. Rav Shmuel First in Chicago, head of the Agudah in Chicago, has issued a skama for Ora. And we work with Rabbanim and Batei Din from across the spectrum. So in this case, in this case in particular, there's a kol koreh, a public declaration Feinstein issued by 10 Haredi Gedolim. Basically almost every major Haredi posek in America, besides for Avram Meir Weiss's grandfather, Reuven Feinstein, has signed this declaration against him. We work with Agunot and communities across the spectrum, from non-Orthodox to modern Orthodox, Yeshivish, Haredi, Hasidish, and we'll work with the Rabbanim and the Batei Din from all those communities.
So here's my question: if you have the Kol Koreh in front of you, and you have all these Rabbanim who are backing what you're doing and the fact that this is a moral absolute, granting a woman a get is a moral absolute, then what is going on with that family?
It's shocking. And people say, how can it be that this is happening? And the answer is, indeed. It's absolutely shocking. And just last night, I sat down for a meeting with a representative or someone who has been advocating on behalf of the Weiss family and Avram Meir Weiss. And what we see as black, he sees as what we see as white, he sees as black. It's an olam hafach. He sees it entirely differently than we see it. And there's no convincing them when they're so certain that what they see is the way it is. It's very hard to convince them otherwise. And so that's why we feel it's so important. What enables domestic abusers, what enables get refusers, is the fact that they have family and friends and community who excuse their abusive behavior.
Right.
And so what we feel is so important is if we can change that dynamic, if we can get communities to say get refusal is never justified. It's never okay to refuse a get. And the minute that you do, and certainly the minute there's a seruv, an order of contempt against you from a bezdin, and certainly the minute that there are a dozen gedolim who've signed a public proclamation against you, right? That the community says, we're not supporting this. And unfortunately, in Staten Island, I'm sorry to rag on one borough, but generally Staten Island is the borough that you rag on. But again, nothing against Staten Island, but we've had so many people who are members of that community who've been contacting us, emailing us, calling us, what are you doing? You don't know the full facts. And the answer is, if you would stand up and say, we won't tolerate this within our community, that would make the difference.
It completely stumps me. The same way it stumps you, the same way it stumps everyone else, and the same way it stumps anyone on Facebook. And obviously there's a page, a very, very popular page on Facebook to garner support for Gital and help her get a get. And you would think that all of these different kinds of pressures would work. What is he, or in this conversation last night, and you may not be able to share this information, but what do they want? What is that last holdout? What is the thing that they claim he needs to get in order to give her the get?
So the question is really what motivates a domestic abuser? What motivates this controlling behavior? Okay. And so the answer is going to be dependent on every case, but fundamentally in these cases, I think a lot of it is if I can't have her, then no one can. Oh. It's just about control. It's about ego. It's about gaiva. It's about someone's power and control, and a community that is saying that we're not going to stand up against that.
It is an absolutely horrific conversation, whether it's for Gital or anyone else on your site. By the way, there is a list of men on the site that are withholding gets from their wives.
And those we're working at any given time on about 50 active Aguna cases. So the ones on our site are ones where we're at the point of public pressure and things like that. But there are many cases that just like we worked on initially with this case, working behind the scenes and trying to work things out amicably. We don't have them on our up on our website, and we so hope we won't have them on our website.
This is a last ditch effort.
We never want to have a rally. That's not our goal. Right. Our goal is to get a get unconditionally and in a timely fashion. And so there are many cases of working behind the scenes and working amicably to try and resolve things peacefully.
How did Gital first contact you?
That's a good question. I think it was her father has been as kind of her spokesperson, and if I recall correctly, I think it was a friend of her father's knew about us and had worked with us on another case and referred her to us. If I recall correctly, I don't remember exactly, but I think that was the situation.
And your first meeting with her?
So the truth is that something that's really important that we stress is that we don't represent the wife. We don't represent the aguna. We don't represent the husband, right? We represent the get. And so if one of the sides makes a donation to ORA or wants to give us money, we have refunded donations when they've been given sincerely, because unlike...
I'm about to make 3 bad jokes, but I'm going to withhold myself on all of them.
Unlike what we saw a month ago, that was part of the problem with Rabbis Epstein and Wallach, is that what people were really upset about is that they're accepting money from these very vulnerable women. And so that's something that we make very clear. We won't accept money from them. We don't represent them. They're not our clients. There's no attorney-client privilege or anything like that. We're focused on the get. We even once had a case where we finally convinced the husband to give the get unconditionally, and the wife turned around and said, actually, I only want to accept it on X, Y, and Z conditions. And we just turned around and said, now we're going to try and convince you to accept the get unconditionally. We're focused on the get and on upholding halacha. So you asked when was the first time we met her. The first time I met her, actually, I think was at the first demonstration that we organized on her behalf, a year after we started working on the case. Because we're not meeting with them as clients. The vast majority of our work is done over the phone, through email, things like that. So I mention that just because, meeting, when you asked about meeting with her, she's not our client, and we often...
Got it. That's a very important distinction to make.
There are cases where we never meet the women.
That's
because
also
we're working virtually, we're working over the phone and by email and speaking with people and sometimes organizing demonstrations, and they don't show up, and it's not about them. It's about the get. It's about halacha. It's about not abusing a Jewish woman.
GetOra.org, or in my case, GetOra.com, GETORA. Rabbi Stern, just in 1 minute or less, because we are running out of time. There are a number of documents and pieces of information on your website that's really important for women and for men to know and to have access to even before they get married.
Yes. The halachic prenuptial agreement,
right,
which was established by the Bezdin of America. Rav Wallach was the one who authored it. We've seen the halachic prenuptial agreement be 100% effective in preventing get refusal. We've seen over 500 cases of contentious gittin. We've never had a case where halachic prenup was properly signed, a copy was available, and the get was withheld for a lengthy period of time. It has been endorsed by major poskim, right, and there is no posek that has issued any formal declaration saying, I'm saying from the yeshivish world of the Haredi Welt, that said that the halachic prenup poses a halachic problem for a get. The primary hesitation in people using the halachic prenup is they say, well, it kind of feels uncomfortable, it's unromantic to talk about the divorce at the time of marriage.
Get over it.
But it's not just that. The halachic prenup simply provides civil enforcement for the terms of the ksuba. And so if you sign a ksuba under the marriage and you read it very proudly under the chuppah, right, and you put it up on the wall of your living room, right, then you should be able to do the same with the halachic prenup. I say to people, when my wife and I signed the halachic prenup, I kind of felt it was kind of romantic, because I was saying to her, I love you so much and I care about you so much that I never want to hurt you. And if a guy can't sign his name to that, don't marry him. I present to yeshiva high school students, to college students, and in shuls all the time, and that's the message that we share all the time, that the refusal to sign a halachic prenup can be potentially a red flag for other controlling and abusive behavior. The message we want to get out there is, friends don't let friends get married without the halachic prenup. We need to have a culture change of everyone saying, sign the halachic prenup. And we expect it from rabbis to only be Masada Kedushin.
Right.
If a halachic prenup is signed, we should expect it from ourselves as well. If your friend says to you, I want you to be a groomsman or a bridesmaid or an aid this or an aid that, you say, I would love to, as long as you sign a halachic prenup.
Those are words to live by, and I do mean that literally. Rabbi Jeremy Stern, I really appreciate you coming here today, the Executive Director of ORA, the Organization for the Resolution of Agunot. Again, that is GetOra, GETORA.org. Thank you very